Going to get a little bit more deeply into the field of healing today, healing both mind and body. Because in order to have a healthy body, we need to have a healthy mind. So we're going to cover some things today that we have never filmed before, but we think that folks need to know about it. And this today is being shot here in my living room in the mountains of Virginia. And let's just go ahead and start. There's a long list of things that happen to people and things that would affect a person's energy level. Now, if you have watched the other DVDs we have produced, we have talked about reading a chart, programming our brain, prosperity, and energizing water and energizing your life. And we've worked at making those things as concise and to the point as we could. But hopefully I have learned more in the several years that I have been doing healing work than I can cover in a few brief filming sessions. So what we're attempting to do today is to share with you some of the other things that we have found. Now, this won't be a complete list, and I don't know if the list will ever be completed because we're constantly learning things. But I would like to share with you some of the things that we have learned over the years and have had very good success with. Now, please understand that not everything is going to work equally for everyone. I think I have said before that the only thing I know that works every time for everyone is the law of gravity. Everything else probably has some exceptions to it. But what I'm sharing with you today are things that we have found that work most of the time. So hopefully you will be able to use these things to help yourself and to help your family and your friends. Now, we aren't making any medical claims of any type. I'm just telling stories and giving examples of what we have learned, and the feedback that we have received from the people was very favorable, indicating that it worked. Now, one thing that we'd like to start out with is of extreme importance. However, it is not something that we find every day on people. But for those of you who might have this problem, it would be something that would affect you for the rest of your life. So that's called a fragmented soul. Now, before you push a button and turn the TV off there, let's listen long enough to explain what a fragmented soul might be. And if you don't believe it, I don't blame you, because when I first heard about it, I didn't believe it either. I didn't believe it until I saw results from it. But this is the way it appears to work, as near as I can tell. There are certain conditions that seem to fragment a person's soul. One of them would be being beaten severely, being knocked unconscious, perhaps being in a car wreck, being under anesthesia during an operation, extreme depression. Maybe you lost someone that was very close to you, or maybe your dog died that you liked. Or one of the worst things that we have found that would cause this is childhood sexual abuse. And there is an epidemic of this. I know because I deal with the victims of it. So I want to share with you how we handle those situations, and we get really good results with it. Whenever I'm working with a client by phone and do a soul retrieval, and the client starts crying, not because of sadness, but because of emotion, that tells me something is going on. So the way we do this is with our dowsing, and if you've watched the DVDs before, you are familiar with dowsing. And as you probably know, I use a .45 caliber bullet on a chain that Nancy makes for me. Actually, a lot of my friends want them, so she makes some more. And this is my pendulum. Now, you use whatever kind of pendulum you like. But the question would be, what percentage of a person's soul is in their body? And this would be on a chart that we will refer to here right now. I would like to refer you to this chart we pinned up here, a very simplified dowsing chart. If you have my book, you will notice that this chart is much simpler than the one in the book. And that's because I erased about 3/4 of it. Now, if you will notice right here, on the inside circle, the numbers run 1 down through 10, which is about the 3 o'clock position. And over here, the numbers 1 run through 9, but you use your imagination and put a 10 right here. This is a plus side, this is a minus side. Right now, we are simply referring to the plus side of the chart, and the question would be, how much of this person's soul is present in their body? And you would get a reading somewhere between 0 and 100%. And if you get 100%, that's wonderful. If you get anything less than that, obviously they've had some type of traumatic experience sometime in their life, and they need some help. Now, I do find a number of people that I will get a 0 reading, like it's just all gone. And these are the really traumatic cases. And most of the time when I find this, it's because a family member has asked me to work on the family, and this just happens to come up. Sometimes these people will actually ask for help themselves. And when I say, well, I don't really want to hurt your feelings, but it looks like that you're missing part of your soul, the answer is usually, I'm not surprised. So, what do? Well, I know there are rather elaborate methods for soul retrieval. They are too elaborate for me to learn, so I have to do things simple. Now, let's try to throw in some odds and ends here, so maybe this will make some sense to you. The first thing I do, I ask, how much of this person's soul was present at the time of their birth? And if I get an answer of 100%, it's obvious that whatever happened to them happened since they were born. And that's usually the case. However, there are some exceptions. Sometimes we get a 0. Now, I know if you went to Sunday school, this is already boggling your mind beyond belief. I'm aware of that. I've been there too. But I kept working with it, and I found out we could make some sense out of it, and not only that, we could help an awful lot of people. So the next question would be, how many lifetimes ago did they lose their soul? And then your dowsing instrument will swing to the number of lifetimes. I think the record that I have found thus far was about 26 lifetimes ago. Now, your logical question is, how was this person born without a soul? The only honest answer I can give you is, I don't know. I'm simply sharing with you what I have found, which I believe to be true based on the results that we get. So let's just assume that some of you folks out there are watching have this problem. Now, you might want to shut the TV off at this time and check yourself or your family or close friends or whoever to see if they have all of their soul or if you have all of yours. If you do, that's wonderful. But this DVD wasn't made for you folks who have everything wonderful and perfect. It's made for the people that need help. So, I want to go through the process with you here, and like in the other films that we have made, we are putting a thought form or an energy into this, that the energy that I am producing here can be directed to whomsoever you choose. This is how we're energizing water, it's how we're energizing homes. This is how we're going to do our best to help you here today. So, what I would suggest you do is just have the mentality that I am working directly on you. Or, if it's not you, and one of your members of your family or friends, you might want to write down their name on a little piece of paper, simply to allow you to focus the energy on it. And then have the idea or belief that the energy that I am generating and directing out here today can be sent to the person you want help for. And we've had quite a bit of success doing things like this with films, so let's see if we can do it here today. The first thing I would do, since we don't know we can't travel through time, we will. You see, time is not necessarily linear, as we have maybe been taught to believe, but it's in different dimensions. And we seem to have the ability to travel into other dimensions of time. So what I want to do is, at this time, go back in time until the moment just before the event occurred that fragmented the soul of either you or whoever you wish to direct this energy to. Now, we have done this simultaneously in groups to numbers of people, and it does seem to work pretty good. So the bobber will go in a counterclockwise manner. Anytime we're going back in time or removing anything, it will go counterclockwise. Now I'm going to turn it around here so you can see from your point of view. I know if you're looking at it from that angle there, it looks like it's going clockwise, but it's just backwards. Okay? Now, when it stops, we are at the appropriate point in time to make some changes. So what we're going to do is what I call scramble the frequency of the event that fragmented the first part of the soul, and do so to all future events from that point on. And again, our bobber will run in a counterclockwise direction, and I have absolutely nothing to do with it. I am not putting any physical effort, whatever, into spinning this thing. It's just doing it on its own, and it stops. All right, now why did we ask to adjust it to the most appropriate energy at that time? Because I have no idea what the appropriate energy would have been a couple thousand years ago, and don't really need to know. The system that we're working with, what we call our dowsing system, seems to take care of that for us. So when that is done, without any effort on my part, the bobber will start to spin in a clockwise position or direction. When it does that, it is time to start changing the energy into something else, and it's what I call mental judo. We take an energy that's being used in a non-beneficial manner and we're turning it into something beneficial. We also, at this time, are going to address what I will simply refer to as the spirit world. You might want to ask your spirit guides, your guardian angels, whatever you believe in, to find the lost and fragmented soul parts of this person or you. And sometimes, if I'm working on an individual, the words will come to me as the frightened or the tortured or depressed soul parts. It seems like the idea just comes up as I'm working on a person. So what we're going to do is bring those soul parts forward in time into the present. And then we're going to provide them the most appropriate healing energy. See, we can keep this real simple. Provide them the most appropriate healing energy, making them completely whole and well. And then we're going to harmonize the lost soul parts with the physical body, causing them to feel loved, wanted, accepted, and safe. Now, you may or you may not feel an energy shift when we do this. Many people do, but some people are just totally insensitive to this type of thing and may not feel anything. But you will probably notice within a few days, life seems to be going somewhat better than it did. I've had people tell me, well, there's a part of me that I thought was missing and it's back now. That's a very common comment that we get on this. And then some people become very, very emotional about it and just break down and cry. And that's okay too. They get over it and they feel better when they do. Now that, folks, is all it really takes to do a soul retrieval for someone. It's that simple. We have taken all this stuff and greatly simplified it. Now, give you a story. When I first learned this technique, I was working with my friend Evelyn Rattray, a Tahltan Indian woman from up in British Columbia. And we were working with a young client one morning, and she looks at me and says, she doesn't have all her soul. Get it back. And I said, well, I don't have it. And if I don't have it, how am I going to give it back to her? And besides that, I don't think I even believe in this stuff. Oh, you'll figure it out. So I didn't really know what to do, so I take the person aside and I said, give me your hand. And I reach out and I take hold of her hand. And when I did, I mentally saw a car wreck, and I saw her spirit floating up over the car. And I think, that's what happened. She thought she was going to get killed, so her spirit left, even though her physical body was still there. And I said, hey, the wreck's over, come on back. And I just kind of reached up and like I took hold of the hand of the spirit, and they didn't want to come back. They were afraid. I said, okay, I'll make a deal with you. You come on back, go in her body, and if you don't like it, you can leave again and I won't bother you. Instantly, a light came on her eyes, expression came on her face. I mean, this was instant. So I take her back over and I said, Evelyn, here she is, what do you think? She takes one look at her and says, you got her back. So we found out that we didn't have to do this by physically working with people. We found out we could do it over the telephone. And today we're seeing if we can do it by a film that we're putting on your TV set. So I think that one worked pretty good. Now, another thing that affects a tremendous number of people is they didn't feel wanted when they were born. Now, there's a number of reasons for this. They may have been wanted or they may not have. But even though they were wanted, they might not have felt that way. Among the reasons we have found that a person might not feel wanted when they were born would be being born into a home with impoverished conditions. They're wondering, how can we possibly feed, clothe, and take care of a baby? So this seems to be based upon this idea that when the mother is carrying the baby feels the emotions of the mother and takes everything personal. Now, I say it this way, the mother could kick the cat out the door and the baby would take it personal. So any trauma during pregnancy could also prevent a baby from not feeling wanted when it was born. Jealous older brothers and sisters could do it. Any type of alcoholism, excessive drug abuse, disharmony in the home, any type of an atmosphere that a baby would feel uncomfortable in could cause them to not feel wanted. A traumatic or difficult birth, and I say it this way, even a grouchy doctor in the delivery room could prevent a baby from feeling loved and wanted. Now, this is what happens, as best I can figure it out. There's a very thin line between our attitude and our belief system. And our belief system is the dominant factor that controls everything that happens to us. So if a baby is born with a belief system of not feeling wanted, then that person is going to grow up and go through life with that same feeling. What happens is we attract to us the people, the circumstances, the energy, and the events that support our belief system. So what do you think happens when a person goes through life feeling nobody wants them or nobody loves them? You're going to attract to you whatever it takes to support what you believe. Now here's the good news. The good news is we can change it. And again, we don't know, we can't go through time, so we will. Now I want to refer you to the chart here just a moment and show you how to dowse this and what questions to ask. All you would do is ask, to what degree do either I or this person you wish to work on or to investigate, to what degree did I or they feel wanted at birth? Now, if you are lucky to be up here in the top 80, 90, 100% range, you are indeed fortunate. But what if you're down here? Maybe 10%, maybe 0. But the sad part is, I find an awful lot of people are down in the 70, 80, 90, and even 100 on the minus side of the chart. And I will say to them, I don't want to hurt your feelings, but are you aware that you didn't feel wanted when you were born? The vast majority of them will say, I know I wasn't wanted when I was born. Or they will say, my mother didn't want me, or my dad didn't want me, or I was adopted, or whatever. These are the people that are down in here in the minus 90 and 100 range. Well, what do? We help them out. And this is the procedure for it. And I'd like to do this for you if you have the need, or again, if you want to write down the name of someone that in your family that does have this need, we'll be glad to see if we can send the energy to them too, while you got to play a part in this now. You've got to direct the energy to them, and I suggest you write their name down, because that's going to help you to focus your attention on what we're doing here. All right, so we want to go back in time until the moment of birth for either you or whoever you wish to work on. And again, the dowsing instrument will go in a counterclockwise movement until it stops. What does that tell us? It tells us that we're at the right time. All right. At that time, this is the terminology that I use because it seems to work. And I really haven't found anything that works any better, but if you do, feel free to use it. What we want to do is to remove the emotions of the beliefs, thoughts, memories, conditions, and life experiences of you, your mother, and anyone else that is associated or was associated with your birth. All right, now please understand that energy is just energy. How the energy is used determines whether we call it positive or negative. So what we're doing, we're removing the emotions from it, or we are neutralizing it. Pick your own choice of words on this. All right. So we're removing all of the beliefs, thoughts, memories, conditions, and life experiences, and even opinions that prevented you from feeling loved, wanted, and accepted at moment of birth. Now, the length of time and the velocity at which this bobber moves is an indication of the amount of energy required to correct the problem. That's true in every case of whatever you're doubting. So it stops. Without any movement on my part at all, it will then reverse and go into a clockwise spin. At which time, please understand, we have, bear with me here with some visualization, we have a big pile of neutral energy. It's neither good nor bad because we just neutralized it. We removed the emotion from it, so it's just pure energy. So let's take that energy and transform it into the most appropriate energy at the moment of birth. And please understand, we're not working from the present, we are working from the past, from that moment in time when you were born. So we're going to take that energy and transform it into the most appropriate energy that would cause you or your subject that you're working on to feel loved, wanted, accepted, and safe. And bring this energy and feeling forward into the present and carry it into the future. And again, we have had people break down and cry when we do this because of the emotional shift. And then again, you may not feel anything. But that is how we do this. Now, what have we just done? Well, as near as I can tell, we have taken you back in time and changed your belief system at moment of birth to attract to you the people, circumstances, and events that would help you to feel loved, wanted, accepted, and safe. And it's still spinning. Okay. Now, another thing that affects an awful lot of people physically, emotionally, mentally, and perhaps even spiritually, and it's a subject we covered in the Prosperity and Freedom DVD, but the point I want to make here is the same conditions can be applied to health and to emotional conditions. So let's apply to that today rather than the financial situation. And it's what I call self-sabotage mentalities, self-destruct mentalities, self-hate mentalities, and self-punishment mentalities. We have found a number of people in a lot of pain because they have, for whatever reason now, maybe through feelings of guilt or unworthiness or whatever, shame, whatever, feeling not good enough, they feel they have to punish themselves. So they have what we call self-punishment mentalities. There are far more people than you might imagine that have self-sabotage mentalities. And when I find someone with a large number of these, like maybe 15 or 20, I will ask them, do you go through life and find life very difficult, that whatever you attempt to do, you seem to mess it up? Most of them will say, yes, I do, but I don't know why. It's because you have self-sabotage mentalities. Now, there's also the self-destruct mentalities, which are even worse. And it seems that these really affect a person's health. And we don't find too many self-hate mentalities, but we do sometimes. And I really feel sorry for these people because they really don't like themselves at all. But again, please understand, the bottom line of all of our work is simply based upon this. All things are composed of energy, and the intelligent mind can change energy. And that's exactly what we're doing here today. Now, there's one more that I call a brainwashed mentality. And that is, we are affected by what we hear, whether we believe it or not. So if we spend our time and associate with people that speak negatively all the time, that's going to rub off on us. You can't hardly prevent it from rubbing off on us, especially if you happen to grow up in an atmosphere like that, to where all you heard was something negative all the time. Because being at a young age, your brain was at a lower frequency and it absorbed this information much more readily then than it does since you're an adult. So we toss in the phrase here of brainwashed mentalities. These are not your fault. Actually, I don't know that any of them are. I suspect that the majority of them are inherited. My doubting has indicated that. When I check to see, are these mentalities self-imposed or were they inherited? In the vast majority of cases, they were all inherited. Nobody intentionally, or at least very few, goes out and intentionally messes up their life. We are a product of our ancestors to the dawn of time, and we are still dealing with a lot of their mentalities, things we have inherited. You might call it genetic memory. But please understand, these are nothing more than forms of energy. So what we're going to do is remove the emotions from all of the self-sabotage, self-destruct, self-hate, self-punishment, and brainwashed mentalities that adversely affect you. Now, we need your cooperation to do this. You have to want it to happen. And you may need to do it more than one time. It just depends upon what kind of condition you're in and where your belief system is. Some people, we can do things for one time and they're fine. Others have a little trouble accepting it and we've got to redo it, or they have to redo it for themselves. Now, a lot of you folks out there watching this, I will probably never get to meet, which is why we're doing something like this. We're trying to reach as many people as we can out there around the world and teach them to help themselves. And this is the best way I have found to do it. All right? Now, some of you folks out there watching this have really got some serious problems. Why? Because look how long it's taken this thing to move. All right. Now, usually when we're doing this, Barbara will go into a tremendous energy spin, as it's doing right now, and then it will stop. Now, this happens in front of every live audience that I work on with this. It's doing exactly the same thing it always does. Now, you may want to go back in time if you're a rather proficient dowser and check 1 hour ago and ask how many of these mentalities you had, how many self-destruct or self-sabotage mentalities you had then, ask how many you have now. What I would also suggest, in about 3 days, check again, because there's a possibility that you may have kind of fallen back into your old pattern of thinking and brought them back. You may have to do this for yourself a number of times, but it sure is worth the time. Now, I was told by one of my friends that there was a study done at some college, and I have no idea where, And the study went something like this, that they discovered that some people are naturally happier than others. Now, I don't know how long it took them to find this out, but that's what they concluded. And they found that if this was an inherited characteristic, and that if something very pleasant or exciting happened, this person's emotions would go up. But over time, the emotions would deteriorate back to what they call the emotional baseline. And if something very depressing happened to the person or unfortunate, the emotions would drop down, and obviously they would get sad or depressed. But over time, the emotions would accelerate back to this standard emotional baseline. To my knowledge, that concluded the study. Well, all it really said is some people are happier than others. Blame it on your ancestors. If your dog dies, you'll get over it. If you win the lottery, you'll get over it. And that was about the bottom line, as near as I could tell. Well, I got to thinking about this. We can do better than this. If there is an emotional baseline, I bet there is a financial baseline, and I bet there is a health baseline. So I did an experiment on someone and didn't tell them about it. And I worked at this to see if I could change it. Because after all, it was simply a form of energy. And I waited 3 weeks to call the person. And when I asked how they were, they said, I'm happier now, or have been happier in the last 3 weeks than I have been for years. Well, that was a blind experiment because the person didn't know I was working on it. So I figured, okay, we can do something with this. So let's do it. What I want to do here is to remove the emotions of all the beliefs, thoughts, and memories of you and your ancestors to the dawn of time that adversely affects your emotional baseline, your financial baseline, and your health baseline. Now, you may get creative and find that there's a lot of other things you can correct with this. A lot of folks I share information with will come back and tell me what else they found with it. And that's how we got to this point, because we learned something from someone else and decide to expand upon it and see what we can do with it, and we get results, and then we start sharing it with other people. Now, this may take a while. This is not just your parents and your grandparents. This is going all the way back. All right. And again, the results is probably going to depend upon your receptivity to the idea. Okay. Now, realizing that beliefs, thoughts, and memories are simply forms of energy, let's turn them into something useful. So let's take all of this energy that we have neutralized or removed emotions from you and all of your ancestors at the dawn of time, and let's transform this energy into the most appropriate energy that would raise your emotional baseline, your financial baseline, and your health baseline. You see, we're not just really stuck with whatever our ancestors happen to have left us. We're in a position to change it. And that may be one of our better discoveries of dowsing. That's one of the things that I have found that we can do with dowsing is change energy. And we can not only change it in the present, we can change it in the past. And if we can change it in the past, and you think about this, if we can actually change our past, we can change our future. And that's really what we're working at doing. We're not trying to do it, we're actually doing it. We might need to do it to a greater degree with more success, but we are doing it to some degree. All right. And again, you may want to repeat this a number of times. I suggest that you use your dowsing chart after you finished up here today and ask on a scale of 0 to 100%, what was the effectiveness of this upon you? And then you might ask, do you need to go through this process again? Do you need to do it for yourself rather than watching me do it for you? Which way are you going to be better off? Some of you would rather do it for yourself. That's fine. This is what this is about, is training you how to do it. All right, now beliefs, thoughts, and memories can affect any phase of your life. And on any subject that you might want to bring up, whether it is health, finance, relationship, or whatever it might be, you might want to ask, do I have any beliefs, thoughts, and memories that affect this? And what is the effect? Is it a positive effect or a negative effect? And how strong on a scale of 0 to 100%? Well, this is what we just did, but I want to kind of do a brief rerun on it here. Whatever the subject may be, just ask to neutralize the emotions from, or remove emotions from, or neutralize, whichever word you want to use, the beliefs, thoughts, and memories that adversely affect you from accomplishing whatever it is you want to accomplish, whether it is financial, relationship, health, goals, whatever it happens to be. Because it's what we call a limiting belief system, and it's a way to start eliminating that limiting belief system. Now, I'm not going to tell you can do all this in one day. I didn't. I set out to eliminate the beliefs, thoughts, and memories of myself, my ancestors, and the influence of people around me that were affecting me in certain areas of my life. And I would have to do this quite often. Now, I was just learning at the time. What we have found is that whenever we've learned something for the first time, it takes longer to do it. Once you start practicing with it more, then you can do it a whole lot faster. So you may or you may not need to work on yourself again with this, or you may just want to watch the film again and allow me to do it for you. That's your choice. Now, I do want to repeat something here. Many of our beliefs and thoughts and memories might come from association. So I suggest that you use your dowsing and check to see what percent of the beliefs, thoughts, and memories that you have did you actually create on your own. That is, let's say you have limiting beliefs on whether you can get well. Maybe you have some type of disease that your health caretaker, provider, doctor, whatever, tells you that you just might as well make your will because people don't survive with this illness you have. Well, that's their opinion. You have a right to your own opinion, and you don't necessarily have to accept someone else's. I remember taking a hike one time with an old fellow, and he said, you know, I was given 6 months to live due to the heart condition I had 26 years ago. I said, what did you do? He said, I decided not to believe the advice I was given. Well, it seemed to serve him well for 26 years. So what I'm saying here is, if you hear something that is detrimental to your health, you really have a choice whether to believe it or disbelieve it. Which way do you think you're going to be better off? Another thing I would suggest to you is be careful who you associate with. If people are constantly talking about everything that's wrong with them and you and everything else, this is going to affect the way you think. And when it affects the way you think, it's going to affect your body. So that's pretty plainly said, and I think everybody can understand it. Just remember, you're affected by what you hear, whether you believe it or not. Now, I would like to cover another subject here that we have had some really good success with that doesn't seem to be real well known. Now, not everybody has this problem, thankfully, but a number of folks do. And it's what I call, and I'm using information that someone else gave me from the read and study they did on it, and you may already know about this, but I find that most of my audiences don't know about it. And that is what we call the balance of blood flow to the brain. Now, it's not necessarily more or less blood flow to the brain, as I have been told, but it is more like flowing to the brain, the appropriate areas of the brain in a balanced manner. Now, what we have found is if the blood does not flow to the brain in a balanced manner, it will create a abnormal behavior. Now, this may be manifest as autism, it may be aggression, it may be anxiety, it may be depression, it may be a dozen other things. But what we found we could do with pretty good success was balance the flow, the blood flow to our own brain and to that of another person. Now, this is an inherited factor, apparently, because I'm basing this upon what I have been told by someone who studied this, and also upon my own experiences. But we have seen people completely change by balancing the blood flow to the brain. Now, this is not usually a one-time, fix-it-for-a-lifetime technique. This is something that seems to require some maintenance. And I can't tell you how much because it depends upon the person. I'll give you my own personal example. I found that if I got too many people calling me, too many people writing me, and most of the emails have in the subject line, help, 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 after a while it starts to get to you. Even though you want to help these people, there's just more of them than you can possibly keep up with. Well, I would like to be nice to folks. So I found that whenever I started getting stressed out and was getting a little too grouchy with some folks, if I would balance the blood flow to my brain, within about 30 minutes, I could tell a difference and I could treat people better. We have also have an outstanding case with a person that was bipolar. Now, I'm avoiding names and dates and places here to so you won't have any idea who I'm talking about. But in this particular case was a woman about 35 years old that was unable to hold a job, was unable to look after her child, had to move back in with her parents, was 100 pounds overweight, and life just wasn't working for her. Well, we went through the process that we do in the Energize Your Life film that we made of clearing out negative energies, changing the energy in the home and all this. But then, once a day for 2 weeks, I would balance the blood flow to her brain. Now, this was a person who was very depressed, but she started writing me about 3 times a week saying, "I'm doing better, will you please keep working on me?" And the emails became more cheerful. Well, I worked with her, which is what I normally don't do, but this was a special case. I worked with this person every day for 2 weeks. I had never met her at the time. I only had a phone conversation with her. But at the end of the 2 weeks, she was a completely different person. I didn't meet her for over a year later. She had dropped about 85 pounds, was very pleasant, very cheerful, and just really pleasant to be around. Her entire attitude had changed. Her whole life had changed. What did we do? We balanced the blood flow to her brain. Now, whenever I find, and I find a lot of them, when I'm working with clients by phone, and it's usually I will be working on the whole family, I will always teach them how to do this. Now, if you don't know how to dowse, simply say an affirmation. If you're real religious, say a prayer. And all you do, you say, what do you say? You simply give thanks for balancing the blood flow to this person's brain. That's all. Now, I would suggest you use your dowsing chart on this. The way to ask is, to what degree is the blood flow to this person's brain balanced? Ideally, it would be a plus 100%. When I first learned this and checked mine was 80%. How did it affect me? I became aggressive, and I became aggressive to people I didn't want to be aggressive towards, but it couldn't seem to help it. So I found out that we could balance the blood flow to our brain and be a lot nicer to people. But just as a few suggestions here I want to give. If the blood flow to the brain is down by only about 50%, these people are in serious trouble. I find occasionally people with anywhere from 0 to 10% blood flow balance. Now this isn't normal, or at least it hasn't been up till now. And whenever I find this, it is not the person themselves that have called for help. It's usually a member of their family. And my response usually is, this person's totally loco, aren't they? And the answer is always, yes, they are. Well, it's obvious. Why? Because the blood flow to the brain is practically 0. Now, whenever they're in that bad of shape, it's going to take a while to get them back in balance. Also, while we're on a similar subject here, check the balance of the right and left side of the brain. And ideally, the right and left side of the brain should be 100% in balance. But we find some people down in this range here, 10, 20%. Those folks really aren't handling life very well. So if you can simultaneously balance the blood flow to the brain and balance the right and left side of the brain, and my gut feeling is saying go ahead and do this now and apply it to you and whoever you wish to direct the energy toward. Okay, now, please understand now, you don't have to be a dowser to do this. It's simply intent. Now, the dowsing does help focus your intent, yes, but you can do it just with your thoughts and your intent. Now, you will need to learn how to use your mind to do this, but we've provided other information before that teaches you how to do that. Let's talk about something else that is probably going to be quite a surprise to you. You probably equate what I call spirit guides with guardian angels. And you may be right. I wouldn't argue that point at all. And you probably believe that they are all-wise, knowing, and benevolent. There is where we would differ. I have found this not to be true in several cases. Now you think about it for a minute. Would you actually expect a serial killer to have good spirit guides? I don't think so. And they don't. Now this came as a surprise to me when we first learned that people could have spirit guides that were not in their best interest. Now, that was somewhat of a surprise, but what was even more of a surprise was that these spirit guides could be changed. Now, I'm not telling you that everyone watching this is capable of doing this. I'm not even suggesting that. What I am saying is these things are possible. It may take you a while to reach that point, or you may already be there. But by all means, before you ever attempt anything like this, use your dowsing system and ask for guidance. Do I have permission and ability to do this? Is it appropriate? And is it in both my interest and the other person's best interest to do this? Make sure that you're clear. Even follow that up with another question, is there any reason not to do this? And if you get cleared on all of it and you feel capable of doing it, I'm going to show you how. And actually it's quite easy. I can sum it up very quickly here, and I will in just a moment. But let me talk a little bit about what might be beneficial to you here. The the why do people have non-beneficial spirit guides? Well, we got to remember, if we're right here, that spirit guides once lived as flesh and blood human beings, just like you and me. They had opinions. And where I really learned this was from my Indian friend, Evelyn Rattray, up in Canada. She told me something one day. She said, now, if you're trying to heal someone and your spirit guides don't like their spirit guides, you're not going to be able to help them. And I got to thinking about that. Maybe that's why we haven't been able to help some people. And then I thought a little further. Maybe that's why husbands and wives don't get along. Maybe that's why parents and children don't get along. Maybe that's why bosses and employees don't get along. Maybe their spirit guides don't like each other. So over the last few years, I have found hundreds of cases that this is apparently the case. So the way I ask that is, to what degree of compatibility are the person's spirit guides? And if they're 100%, that's wonderful. But many times the answer is 0. Then something has to be done. What do? We simply work with the spirits as if we were working with another person. I say it this way: whatever seems to work with a human seems to work with a spirit. So we remove the emotions of all the beliefs, thoughts, and memories. And I want to do this for you that are watching out here now. If you've got this problem within your home or within your workplace with your boss or with your kids or wherever, to remove the emotions of the beliefs, thoughts, and memories of the appropriate spirit guides that adversely affect the compatibility and the peace and the rapport that you need with the person that you wish to apply this to. Now, it may be your spirit guide that needs the help, or it may be theirs. But again, your dowsing instrument will go in a counterclockwise manner until it stops. And it's really the same principle as taking a person back in time and changing the way they felt when they were born. We have removed the energy that prevented them from feeling wanted. Here we have removed the energy that have affected the compatibility. So we simply take this energy and transform it into the most appropriate energy for peace, respect, love, and compatibility. And again, that may take more than one time to do. But I believe if you will do this, you will find that you can get along with people a lot better than you have in the past. Now, for you folks out there in the business world, and I work with some of you, whenever you're going to a business meeting, the first thing I do for you is check and see what is the compatibility with the people you're going to be meeting. And then we work at changing it. And we usually change the outcome. Not always, but usually. All right. Now, what do we do if a person just has bad spirit guides? Well, we treat them exactly the same way we would treat an exorcism. Now, I'm going to do this for you, but the information is also located in the Energize Your Life DVD. It's also located in my little book, Techniques That Work for Me. But since you might not have those, let's just do it this way. And I did not mention spirit guides in those. This is the first time I have ever put on film anything about changing a person's spirit guides, if I remember correctly. Don't think I did that before. So what I want to do is to remove the emotions. Excuse me. Got to start all over on this one. What I want to do here is ask my spirit guide if he is willing and able to remove the non-beneficial spirit guides from either you or your family members or whoever you're working with or whoever you wish to direct this energy towards. Okay? And I'm getting a yes. My next question is there any reason not to? And I'm getting a no. Okay? So I simply ask my spirit guide in this manner. you go to the appropriate places, do this filming that we're doing here today, and to whoever it needs to be, this needs to be done for at any point in the future, and take the non-beneficial spirit guides from the ones that have been designated out there and take them over to the other side, give them appropriate treatment, and send them on where they're going. And you notice that the barber immediately went from a yes position to a crosswise no position like this. It happens every time. That is how long it takes to remove the non-beneficial spirit guides from another person. Now please understand that you will need to have the rapport with a spirit guide that is able to do this. So that's why you ask the questions ahead of time, and if you get a no, then do not proceed any further, because that wouldn't be a good idea for you. All right, we'd like to finish up here with just a few suggestions of other things that can be done. And we don't have time on this film here to actually go through and do all of them for you, but we'll give you some ideas. One is, check to see what is the effect of AC current upon you within your home. This is not on a large scale, but there are certain areas of the country that seem to have a negative effect of AC current upon them. And again, you would simply measure this with your dowsing system. What is the effect of AC current upon me, upon my family, upon my home? Ideally, you would get a 0. If there's something wrong, you would get it in the minus side of the chart. All you would do is ask to neutralize the negative effects of AC current upon my family, upon my home. Another thing is psychic codes. Psychic cords are a thought form from one person to another person. My experience has been that they are attached to the chakras of the body. The first chakra being a sexual attachment, and these are the places that I have found them the most. The heart chakra being an emotional attachment, and any cords attached to the top of the head indicating that someone is trying to control the person. So if I find a person, let's say they've got 20 psychic cords to the crown chakra, my first question to them is, someone in your life has tried to control you, haven't they? And the question, or the answer is always, yes, I know that. What we do, we simply, and I like to do this for you at this time, I like to remove, or cut, any non-beneficial psychic cords that are affecting you or the person you have designated to receive this energy. All right. We have had some excellent success at time to time with this, where the person who has been controlling them will not even come close to them again. Now that's phenomenal, and it doesn't happen every day, but it does happen. And we're about to run out of time here on this, so just remember that you can accomplish about as much with your mind and your dowsing system as you believe you can. We have covered what I consider the more severe things today, the things that we've never filmed before, and there are other lesser things like white and red blood cell count, parasites in the body, how well does the body receive the messages from the brain, what kind of condition are the various organs and the glands in your body. This doesn't really require much explanation at all. You measure the condition of them on the chart, and you simply ask to send the appropriate energy to them to make them stronger, to cause them to function in a healthy manner. So I hope that this has been beneficial to you. We've tried to expand your mind. We hope we haven't expanded it too much, but remember, once the mind is expanded, it can never return to its original size. So that's what we've done today, and you take this and make you a better future with it.